All right, hey guys, Jason here, Traditional Bowhunting Wilderness Podcast. Today we're going to talk about when and why you should be using your broadheads. And then after this, I'm going to make another video. It'll be coming out after this, which will be how you can practice with your broadheads at home. Okay, you don't have to have a special broadhead specific target. You don't even have to shoot these broadheads at your target. You can still practice with them at home. I'll show you a few different methods, a few different tactics that you can do. But first off, we want to cover why. All right, so why do we need to use them? So you know, this is a completely dulled out dead broadhead. Okay, this is one of my razor broadheads, and I use it. It's saved as my practice one. I have it on an arrow that is complete. The feathers are so ruined from me matting this down all the time and testing, shooting it wet, and all the stuff that I do to this thing. This arrow's been through the ringer. If you look at those feathers versus my feathers on here, look at the difference in the size of those feathers. Okay, it's been wrecked. But I still use this one specifically because, like I said, I can soak it down and test it wet. I can do all sorts of things with it. But the real reason that we want to practice with our broadheads is to see how they fly in every single condition. It's important to see where that arrow is going. It's important to see if it's flying the same as your field tips. It's important to see if there's any cattywampousness in the actual arrow flight that's happening. We want to be able to identify any of that stuff and get it sorted out with the broadheads. Okay, field tips are one thing, broadheads are a total another deal. Now the other thing that is a scary factor is the reality of a broadhead. See, it's psychological for us. It's a mental game. When we shoot a bow, I'm going to tip this up just a smidge, but when we shoot a bow, hang on, there we go. When we are shooting as traditional guys or compound guys, for instance, with a compound, they focus on a sight pin. They look through a peep sight, look at a sight pin, and they have no knowledge of the arrow whatsoever. We, on the other hand, when we shoot and we come in and we draw, that broadhead is going to be right in our line of sight. It is right there, staring straight at us, and we see it. And there is a psychological aspect to having a broadhead on the end of an arrow that is overwhelming for a lot of people. They can be the best shooter, ice cold on a 3D range, you know, and do everything so perfect. And then you put a broadhead on the end and they start, when it's time to shoot a live animal, they're like this, and they're all over the place, and it's completely normal. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a reality. How do we beat that? How do we gain that knowledge? We shoot broadheads on a regular basis. Now, when I lived in Michigan, I made a point to shoot, because there my season was much shorter. My season started on October 1st and was over by January 1st. So that was the whole entire season that we had for deer hunting, including my out-of-state trips for the most part. That was basically it. So I didn't carry broadheads or practice with broadheads throughout the year like I do now. Down here where I am in Georgia, I hunt 365 days a week. Not literally, but I can. But even now during the slow month, this June and July are my slow time with all the work wedding-wise and stuff. I'm still getting out 1 or 2 mornings a week, even if I'm not fully hunting and I'm more looking to try and catch up where hogs might be to find a place for next week or something. But I'm still out there with broadheads, and I still shoot broadheads regularly, and I shoot them at animals a lot more than I did before. Or even if I don't get to shoot them, I draw on animals a lot more than before, or I miss them, whatever the case is. But I am year-round constantly using broadheads shooting at animals. So for me, I don't practice with them as much now as I once did. I still do. But the psychological factor, when I lived in Michigan, of if I didn't, back in the early days, if I climbed into a stand after shooting all the time, but I climbed in and put a broadhead on that arrow, and then when it was time to roll around and a deer came in, seeing that broadhead on the end of that, the fact that there's a deer there, all of this stuff mentally would cause severe buck fever for me. It does it to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't even realize the damage and power psychologically of having a broadhead on the end of the arrow. The way we beat it, we practice with it. Okay, if you're used to seeing that broadhead or that field tip in there, and now you're constantly shooting, and whether you're vertical or you're horizontal, but you're constantly shooting, and you got that broadhead on there, and you're watching that flight, you're going to see the difference is going to be huge. You're going to gain from that tremendously. I promise you this. So go out there and shoot a couple of arrows with a field tip, and then grab your broadheaded one and put it on there and shoot that. You will sense especially if you haven't done it in a while, you will get this tingly sensation. You will get this feeling of anxiety. It will be there for you. You will get this nervousness like, oh, I got to do this right. This has to go exactly perfect. It's going to set in for you because you have that on the end. That is a deciding factor, and it's huge for traditional bow hunters. So we need to practice with these. When should you practice? all year if you want to, but if you're in a state like up north, if you're in a state that you don't hunt year round or have the option to hunt a lot of the time, then you want to do it that month before the season starts. Practice with your broadhead. Do it regularly, okay? Make sure that you're shooting it. I would say that if you're shooting 4 times a week, make sure at least in every one of those I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Say you're shooting 4 times a week and you're doing 25 arrows a time, make sure at least 5 or 8 of those arrows each time is with a broadhead. You do not have to wreck your targets. Again, I have a video I'm going to make right after I make this that will teach you how to do that without having to destroy targets. But this one, I wanted to keep it short, sweet, and right to the point, and that is that you have to practice with these. It's more than just a flight. The flight matters, and you might find that. See, I shoot 31% FOC. I can wet these feathers down and have this completely bare shaft and shoot it, and that broadhead will not overpower my arrow. It will still go where I want it to. I've shown you that in other videos in the past. But so it'll do that all day long, but you need to know what yours is going to do. If you're going to wet down your feathers and shoot, you better make sure you're in a very safe place until you know what that arrow is going to do, and start very close and slowly back up, knowing that your broadhead's not going to wind plane and take off on there. But knowing what your arrow is going to do with a broadhead on it in these conditions is vitally important. It's also knowing how you react to having a broadhead on there and getting used to that, okay? We practice shooting repetition, and we do that so that we get used to it. This will change all of that. Put that on here and now make that repetition, foomp, foomp, where you just keep seeing it, foomp, and it's just there and you keep seeing it. And you get that broadhead on there and you're paying attention to that broadhead, and then that is going to soon, you won't get that anxiety of shooting with a broadhead. It will be a lot easier for you. So simple little video, hopefully trying to help you understand that, but make sure you take one. You only need one. Take one of your broadheads and designate it strictly as a practice head and use it a lot, especially before the season, to acclimate yourself to it and to prove to you that they fly right. Thanks for watching.